Well, the session just gavelled in about 15 minutes ago. This is night 3 of the Republican National Convention, and you can hear a band playing right now. We're in the middle of a series of speeches from members of Congress, so that's how they're warming up the crowd for tonight's event. Right now, the theme is Make America Safe once again, with emphasis on national security and foreign policy. Now, as for those California delegates, I did spend time with them earlier today. They got a mix today of work and play. The delegation took a field trip to the Harley-Davidson Museum, which is, of course, the legendary motorcycle company that was founded right here in Milwaukee. And you see a lot of this during the convention. In addition to the politics, the delegations also organize some fun events. And in this case, we saw some of each. A lunch with keynote speaker Vivek Ramaswamy, the former presidential candidate, who, by the way, says he may be running for Senator Vance's Senate seat. And then they got to tour the museum. Now, media was not allowed for that part, so we did our best to show you what we can of the Harley Museum. And today, as you might expect, the delegates are really focused on Senator Vance. His acceptance speech is the highlight of tonight's program. And I asked them what they think he would bring to the job of vice president. What do you feel like would make him a good vice president?
I believe Donald Trump, President Trump's policies are some of the best that we've got. They're the best for the country. They're the best for the world. And I think there will be continuity in him carrying those policies on after President Trump. I think he'll do a great job as a president.
He's intelligent, incredibly intelligent. He's got such a great track record, and I know he's new to the Senate, new to politics, but that's what we need, outside thinking, fresh blood.
What makes you feel like he would make a good vice president?
I think he's the next generation of politicians. I think it's really important that we have smart, he's well educated, he's been in business, which is huge, which means that our economy is going to have some attention that it needs. So I'm very hopeful that this is the future of our party.
Also coming up, we'll be hearing from members of the Trump family, starting with Kimberly Guilfoyle, who is soon to be a daughter-in-law of former President Trump. She is engaged to Donald Trump Jr. And you may know she has local ties for us. She's a graduate of UC Davis, and of course, the former First Lady of San Francisco when she was married, that is, to then Mayor Gavin Newsom. Also tonight, we'll be hearing from her fiance. He's in the lineup as well. As for Senator Vance, he will be introduced by his wife, and all eyes will be on his speech, including those from the former president himself. Donald Trump does plan to be here in person as he watches his nominee formally accept that nomination. Edie Lambert reporting live in Milwaukee. Lisa, Ty, back to you.
So much to come. So those are some big crowds behind you at the convention. Tens of thousands of people. Edie, how do people in Milwaukee feel about having that convention taking over their downtown area?
Yeah, that's a great question. This convention draws about 50,000 people. It's way beyond just the delegates. So, yeah, there's an imposition in their downtown area, and we've been talking to you about the security. It's tight to get in here. But at the same time, there's an economic benefit of about $200 million, so that can soften the blow somewhat. The city itself here is a Democratic stronghold, but much of the rest of the state, as you know, is enough Republican to make this a real swing state. I also talked to a crime reporter from Milwaukee earlier today. I asked him exactly that question. How do people feel about all of us converging on your city? And he said, you know, a lot of people are happy to see Milwaukee in the news for something that is not horrible. So there is that.
There is that, and that crime reporter would know. Edie, thank you so much for your excellent reporting. We appreciate it. By the way, a poll shows most Americans and Republicans don't know much about J.D. Vance. The poll is from the Associated Press. It was done before former President Trump picked him as his running mate. 6 in 10 Americans don't know enough about Vance to form an opinion. 17% have a favorable view of him, and 22% view him negatively. Among Republicans, 61% say they don't know enough to have an opinion. 1/4 have a positive view of him, and 1 in 10 have a negative view.
I think that's why many people were surprised that he was the pick. A lot of people just didn't know who he was up until this point. And former President Donald Trump will be taking the stage tomorrow night to formally accept his party's nomination. Today, he took part in a walkthrough on the stage. That's what you're watching right here. Kind of a dress rehearsal. The Trump family is expected to attend tomorrow. Several of his children have been there throughout the week. I'm sure you've seen that. Tomorrow is the first time we expect to see former First Lady Melania Trump in the audience.